Teddy Pantelas. He's a fantastic jazz guitarist. Anything else you want to add to that?
Just had the privilege of playing with a lot of people, from Snooky Young, because he actually played trumpet with the Duke Ellington Band. I had the opportunity of playing with him, to Jack McDuff, who was one of the greatest jazz organists of his time. And of course, Sean Jones, who is now the rising star and one of the top trumpet players of the nation, I think.
So that being said, I want to start with actually our last phone call. So yeah, you do the guitar thing, but you've been getting into a lot of other creative things. So what are those other creative things you've been doing lately?
I like to draw. As far as a hobby goes, I like to draw and get my mind away from playing the guitar. Really enjoy that expression. When I draw, it's more of an expression. It doesn't have to be realism. Another thing I do that has a lot to do with music in a way is martial arts. I've been doing that since I was 24. It's amazing how the same focus that it takes to do martial arts is connected with music. And now it helps the music even be stronger. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that through the years. Just like I'm using music and writing, which I feel is the most important in my music, is writing the originals. So it would be the same thing in drawing. You're painting, you're drawing the story that you want to say instead of writing it in music.
Transition to that, actually. I was reading on your interview you had on your website. It was the Timeless Tunes one, where you were saying you started playing guitar because of the Beatles, but once you heard Wes Montgomery, it was like you heard the truth. What was the difference that you felt between the two?
Well, being young, when the Beatles came out, that was just, everybody wanted to be the Beatles. Everyone wanted to play their music. Everyone wanted a new craze. And the difference was I was older when I listened to Wes Montgomery. And although I grew up listening to rock music, I had started listening to blues and older blues. And then I started switching over to hearing jazz music from the blues. And once I heard Wes, that was it for me. It was just like, it hit my soul. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to play rock music anymore. I just wanted to play and find out as much as I could about jazz music.
So what made you stick with guitar then?
It's obvious, just like the way you play. When I hear you play and watch you play, you can see your heart and soul in it. You love it. And it comes out. You don't have to think about it. Things just pour out of you when you play. And it's that bond, that friendship that you make with this from the very beginning that's always with you. And it always tells you that there's more to learn. You can never stay in one place. A dear friend of mine had this saying that sticks with me, and I'll share it with you. It's called, water seeks its own level. So you could take that in many ways. A lot of people take the guitar and they play it for just learning rock songs or learning basic tunes. Other people take it because they're really serious and want to go as far as they can. So water seeks its own level. If we can be that person that wants to keep growing and growing, that level is going to get higher and higher. So we have that opportunity. Or we can stop and say, okay, I'm happy with where I'm at. And that's a choice a lot of people make in life. They reach a certain point and they feel that they're happy with it. But the beauty of it is music doesn't stop here. We can keep going. And that's why I love that water seeks its own level, because the level could be endless. It doesn't have to be one spot and you're done. You're never done.
So what's your background for learning? I know you started when you were 6. I know you're self-taught, but what did you do? What did you do to learn before going to the jazz clubs and sitting in?
Well, just like everyone else, I played guitar, and my cousin and I used to play a lot, and we would get those books with songs in it, They weren't fake books, but they were the hits of the day. By learning those songs and singing, that helped me really learn about the guitar. So from then on, I just had to figure everything out by myself.
When you were first learning to play, all those first couple of years, was there ever a period where you were frustrated? Was there a topic that you just couldn't understand?
Not at all. It was just all fun. Younger years, I was a rhythm guitar player for my cousins, for our rock band. I played one solo a night, and that was it. And then I didn't mind. I learned how to be a good accompanist and have that groove. It was just the love of music that wanted me to really push hard. Now, I will say there was a big inspiration that happened to me at 20 years old that you might find interesting. When I was younger, between the ages of 16 and 18, I would always jam with a great jazz pianist, world-renowned now, Leanne Ledgerwood. And Leanne and I were both the same age. So we played every week together. Her family would get together. The father would play sax. The brother would play bass. And we would jam. Then Leanne went off to college. Long story short, I see her 2 years later. She quits Berkeley because after the first year, because they can't teach her anything anymore. And she goes to New York. So now I'm 20, she's 20. I hear her play, and she's doing things that I am not doing at all. Now that falls into somewhat that category you're talking about. Mm-hmm. It wasn't frustration. It was like, why don't I know this? Mm-hmm. So that, she put a fire under me, and I ended up practicing between 8 to 10 hours a day and getting my hands on any jazz book, anything I could.
So did you always write songs, or from the time you started playing, or that something that happened a little later?
Oh, I always wrote songs with in that rock band, but as I played jazz music, I always leaned toward writing original music. I did a lot of standards too, but from when I was 18, I wrote my first jazz song called Apology. And from then on, I always wrote. That was my first song. And I found that writing was something that was meant for me, not just being a jazz player.
So what's your approach when you're writing a song? Is it just free flowing, or you go in with a purpose? Or
for me, everybody has a different way, but for me, I feel it coming. When I feel it coming, I know it's time. I grab my guitar, and then as soon as I felt it was done, I knew you could feel that it was completed. I would stop. But it's just something that I felt in my gut. A song's coming. But it's amazing when you have a song that's coming out of you, how you know it's yours when you can play it the next day after not having it written down. And so that's just my process. I feel it, and I don't know if you call it a muse, but there's a certain feeling. I know that it's time to do nothing else but write.
How do you classify your art?
Original music from the heart, what it is. And sometimes it swings, sometimes it's got a Latin groove, sometimes it's got an even eighth, sometimes it's funky. And a lot of times in the writing, I will share this with you, is that when I write these songs, they're just coming out of me. So then I have to sit and write it out. And I find out when I'm writing it that there are these odd time signatures that are happening in it that I had no idea was there. So there's something to be learned by writing your own music. And I've learned an awful lot about improvising by having to improvise over my own music. I had to add that in there because when it comes from here, I'm not thinking, uh, I'm not planning anything.
Yeah.
So when I go back and write it, I find, well, how did this 5/8 and 7/8 measure get in here? And it's kind of exciting.
Hmm. Yeah, and the music's teaching you things that you didn't even ask for. Yeah,
Yep.
I dig it. I want to talk about what is success to you?
Constantly keep growing as a musician and also sharing the music. The success is being able to do what you really love and enjoy it. I love playing the guitar. I love playing music for others. I love writing music. Um, and when you can do things that you really love to do, I think that's successful.
So have your goals changed over the years? Have you always had this thought, or just developed into, this is what success is to me?
It's always been about music. Another wise man said something to me that I think you'll find interesting. For those that are into jazz history, a great jazz guitarist named Bill D'Arango. I did sneak in some lessons here and there with some great guitar players. I'm not going to lie. And Bill D'Arango, when he was young, played with Dizzy Gillespie and a lot of the bebop players, yet Lester Young.
Mhm.
So I met him when I was in my early 20s. But he said something very profound to me. He said, music doesn't care what kind of day you have. It doesn't care if you're having a good day or if you're having a bad day. All it cares about is if you want to give toward to music and you want to be a part of it. If you want to be a vessel, because if you don't, it will find another one that will.
Mm.
And that has always stuck to me, is to keep playing music for the joy of music. Otherwise, you're kind of missing the point. And I believe Victor Wooten has made that pretty clear in his book, The Music Lesson, too.
What if you have any other advice for for artists starting out or at any level? Any other pieces like that they should keep in mind as they're on their journey?
Well, I think it's important to find your voice. It's really important to write your own original music because through your writing, that's where your voice will come. It'll come out. It will come out not only as a writer, where people could hear this beautiful music that's coming from your spirit, but it'll also come out in the way you have to improvise over your music.
Actually, we can't go anywhere on the topic of advice without Turtle wins the race. So you
Oh,
just
yeah.
for a little bit.
Well, that's the key. The turtle won the race. That's my motto. As if you go to my website, you'll be able to see that's the first thing I wrote. Because if you take your time and learn it, you'll never lose it. Sometimes there are some people that learn really fast, jealous of them because they learn a little fast. And you're like, wow, how did they figure all that out? And then you find out a couple years later, hey, how's that guitar playing going? I'm not playing anymore. Well, because it was so easy for them, they took a lot of things for granted, and it wasn't that love and passion. So sometimes if things are a little harder and you take your time and you work hard, you'll win because you'll never stop. That's how I look at it. And instead of trying to get there real fast, just enjoy the time that you have getting there, the journey.
And lastly, under some practical advice, what are some things that you recommend a student would practice each day? Obviously, writing original songs is big for you. What else?
Well, knowing tunes, I'd say that's important to have like a repertoire of songs. And you can break up your practicing for beginners. Of course, you want to know your scales and your modes and different chord voicings. But the real teachers are like these standards.
Mm.
Because each standard it's like a teacher. There's new things you can learn from it. And the next standard, you can build from what you've learned before. So I really recommend learning as many standards as possible and listening to the music. If it's jazz music you love, listen to that. If it's another style of music you love, and that's what you want to do, listen to that. But have that be a part of your vocabulary. And if that's the way you want to go, then study that kind of music and start writing in that vein. But it's important to have the fundamentals, regardless of what style you do. I highly recommend learning it and how to understand as many chord voicings as you can and how they lead to other voicings. It's called voice leading. See how things connect on the guitar or whatever instrument that you're doing. But that's what I would recommend, is learning as many standards as you can, because these are songs that are known universally all over the world. So when all this mess is over with and you want to go to Japan and play and you say autumn leaves, they already know it and you can play with them. And that's beautiful, where people can communicate with music that way.
Actually, one more thing, your website. Will you plug that real quick so people can go check you out?
My website is www.teddypantelas.com. So if you like to listen to something new and fresh, give my music a listen.